Okay, the sheer scale of what the Han chief is building is mind-blowing. Forget tribal skirmishes. This is empire construction on fast forward. Seeing Zhang Xuan's perspective shift from disbelief at the food to awe at the military machine was brilliant. The assimilation strategy is subtle yet powerful. Win them over with comfort and opportunity, but keep the core secrets locked down. And that assessment, the meticulous detail in testing and assigning thousands of recruits into specialized roles, from cavalry needing balance to spearmen needing thrusting accuracy. It's terrifyingly efficient. The formation of the Qianniu and Huben Guards, complete with Sima roles for political control, shows just how calculated this all is. It's not just about brute force, it's about systems, logistics, and laying the ideological groundwork. This isn't just an army, it's the engine of a new order, and you can feel the terrifying momentum building. Who could possibly stand against such deliberate, systematic power? However eager they felt, discipline could not be forgotten. The soldiers lined up, waiting with longing eyes to receive their new gear. The shield-bearer, Jian was the first to touch the legendary iron armor. Whoa, gleaming silver and heavy as hell. This stuff was completely different from the worn-out leather armor the instructors wore. Even the instructors hadn't seen anything like it. The plates were all raised small triangles, interlocking tightly. No ropes, no rings. Heaven knows how it was put together. Anyway, it looked tough as nails. This mountain pattern armor, viewed from the side, resembled small hills. It offered three-dimensional defense, and the effect was outstanding. It was said to be equivalent to wearing 2 layers of iron plates underneath. Under an officer's guidance, Jian grunted and struggled to put it on. The linen lining prevented chafing and the edges were trimmed with sheepskin. Classy. He slipped it on, fastened the wide leather belt, donned the red-tasseled helmet. All set. He bounced on the spot a couple of times. Good grief, at least 40 Jin. He instantly understood. Yesterday's killer weighted run. So that's what it was for, selecting us shield-bearers. Armor donned, weapons received. Each man got an entrenching tool, handy for digging pits or whacking people. Then came the sharpened carbon steel goosequill sabers, slung at the waist, sharp. Jian had dreamed of having one. Sure, carbon steel rusts easily, but it sharpened up nicely with a bit of grinding, easy to maintain. Finally, their specialized gear, the large shields, made of oak, incredibly thick, lacquered to be waterproof and insect-proof. The outside had a black design on a red background. The Qianniu Guards' shields had a bull emblem. The Huben Guards had a double tiger emblem. Dear readers, does it look familiar? Like a Lamborghini. Ahem, that's right, you based it on that logo. As for the Huben Guards, think Peugeot, but replace the lion with a saber-toothed tiger. Jian hands itched. He drew the saber. Slightly. Small characters were carved just forward of the handguard. Han Yang, weaponsmith, Jin Heng. Place of origin, workshop, responsible craftsman, all perfectly clear. Whoa, the shields and entrenching tools had them too. This quality control was incredible, marking the object with the craftsman's name, assigning responsibility to the individual. Jian shuddered. If this fellow Jin Heng hadn't done his job properly in the future, tisk nearby, the archers and crossbowmen also received their gear. Since they didn't charge into the fray, their armor was a step down. Iron scale armor laced together with hemp cord. It looked less substantial than their old leather armor, but it had the advantage of being lighter. Standard issue weapons included an entrenching tool plus a powerful divine arm, foot-drawn crossbow, and a quiver with 50 bolts. Of course, their gear also bore the craftsmen's names. Next were the spearmen and halberdiers. The long spearmen also wore mountain pattern armor, equipped with 7.5-meter-long spears. Only the tip was the spearhead, plus a round shield half a meter in diameter. The shield had a notch perfectly suited for resting the spear and an entrenching tool. The halberdiers were equipped more simply. Mountain pattern armor, a 3.5-meter iron halberd, an entrenching tool, and that was it. But when it came to the most stylish gear, it had to be the scouts. Scouts, you know. After all, that was your job in your past life. How could you shortchange them? No iron armor, but they had crocodile skin half armor, with dark glossy patterns both soft and tough, full of swagger. No iron helmets, but they had woven rattan conical hats that could double as small shields. Their weapons were even more varied and dazzling. A choice between a recurve bow or a divine arm crossbow, a quiver, a folding entrenching tool that doubled as a pickaxe, tie a rope to the back, and it could transform into a grappling hook for climbing, a waist saber, a pocket compass, exclusive, a boot knife, a bamboo blowpipe with 100 darts, plus a vial of anesthetic juice made from hallucinogenic mushrooms, flint and steel, an oil flask, hemp rope, a cowhide backpack, a 2-meter short spear, practically armed to the teeth. The only thing missing was binoculars. Mass production wasn't technologically feasible yet. With this loadout, reconnaissance, taking out sentries, kidnapping, arson behind enemy lines, they could do it all. It was already the top-tier luxury package available for scouts in this era. When this god-tier equipment was revealed, the other troop types' eyes went red with envy. Crocodile armor, folding shovels, pocket compasses. Why did they get all that? So much envy, jealousy, and hate. But the cavalry, appearing last, turned everyone else's envy into pure sour grapes. Full-body mountain pattern armor, iron helmets with face masks, 3 horses per man, and even the horses were armored. 3 sets of tack. Their weapons were also top of the line: entrenching tool, recurve bow, quiver, long cavalry saber, and a fine steel horse lance. This gear was dazzling enough to blind a pay-to-win whale. Though few in number, you were going for an elite troop strategy, every one of them high-spec. Cavalry funded with such an exorbitant investment, if each one couldn't take on 5 enemies, it would be a disgrace to the resources you'd spent. Even the 100 or so logistics soldiers at the rear managed to snag suits of iron lamellar armor. Their weapons were entrenching tools, plus decommissioned long spears used as javelins. The entire force was armed. No one was left out. After the soldiers received their gear, it was the general's turn. Uniformly, they received fish-scale armor and cloud-wing helmets. The scales overlapped, linked by iron rings. Labor-intensive, time-consuming, and exclusive to the top brass. Their weapons were personally customized. Yingrui wielded an 8-faceted longsword. Shui Dongliang swung a Tang-style Hengdao saber. Chai Duoduo drew a stiff bow and carried a horse lance. That fellow Shui Tu finally threw away his ancestral wooden staff and switched to a hollow, pure steel coiling dragon staff. After distributing the equipment, you personally bestowed seals, tiger tallies, command arrows, and command tokens upon the officers of each rank. The commandant and the marshal each received a silver seal. Official documents required both seals stamped together to be valid. The command tokens served as proof of identity and could also be used as credentials. Mobilizing troops required the tiger tally. It was split into 2 halves. One half stayed with the commander in the field, the other was used by the authority dispatching troops. Only when the 2 halves were joined could the army be moved. You also held a master token, which could directly override the tiger tally and revoke command authority. It served as the base for the tiger tally. When joined together, they formed an imposing and quite intricate tiger statue. The command arrows, on the other hand, were made of wood, 3 fingers wide and 1 chi long. When issuing a military order, the command had to be written on it and stamped with a seal. Otherwise, it was invalid. After a battle, these command arrows had to be archived for inspection, used to determine whether a commander had given reckless orders or concealed military intelligence. Thousands of mouths shouting as one voice made the earth tremble. Not only was Zhang Xuan, the outsider, stunned, but even the soldiers themselves felt their blood boil with the sheer force of it. This was esprit de corps, especially potent in the strict discipline of the military camp, where it easily went to one's head. Of course, bad news traveled just as fast, but that's a story for later. Having just received new equipment, morale was soaring. They thought back to just a few days ago when they were wearing mismatched rags. Now, as far as the eye could see, there were uniform military outfits. The same imposing armor, the same brand new weapons. The feeling was, I am a soldier of the Han army. That sense of pride instantly swelled to bursting. Only from this day forward could they truly be considered forged into a single unit. You didn't leave immediately. There was still much to do. The morning and evening runs, previously done in regular clothes, were now conducted in full gear. You called it weighted training, a way to get them accustomed to fighting while clad in chunks of iron sooner rather than later. The junior officers each received a copper whistle, which they treasured. Before, they'd shout themselves hoarse, giving commands. Now, a few sharp blasts of tweet, tweet, tweet made things much easier. The drumbeats in the camp were replaced by military bugle calls, faster and more convenient. The buglers were promising recruits selected from your personal guard, trained by the veteran buglers you had personally cultivated. You also personally drilled those several hundred scouts, teaching them how to use their fancy assortment of equipment, followed by relentless practice. Grappling techniques, military combat drills, silent elimination of sentries, reconnaissance skills, capturing prisoners, interrogating prisoners. You dredged up everything you'd learned in your past life. Unexpectedly, this band of scouts, veteran, hunters just recently brought into the fold, learned incredibly quickly. Their grappling and military combat skills were passable. But when it came to handling equipment and reconnaissance work, they seemed practically self-taught. You pondered this for a long time before it hit you. Before joining the tribe, wasn't every single one of them an experienced hunter? Reconnaissance and wilderness survival had to be taught to modern soldiers. But for these men, it was an instinct etched into their very bones. It was much like hunting, wasn't it? Spot the target, track it, then either capture or kill it. The only truly novel thing was probably the prisoner interrogation techniques. As for mastering the equipment quickly, well, duh. Wasn't the entrenching tool just an advanced stone axe? A javelin was still a javelin, just with an iron head now, and the sabers were far sharper than the bone and stone knives they were used to. What really required dedicated effort were the ranged weapons, bows, crossbows, and blowpipes. They hadn't used these before, and becoming proficient demanded painstaking practice, so you adjusted the training plan. Less time on reconnaissance techniques, more focus on weapon familiarity and combat skills. The other troop types continued. Their daily drills under the leadership of veteran soldiers, formations, physical conditioning, weapons practice, tactical maneuvers, rotating through each. Every few days, they'd even play a game of football for recreation and relaxation, a balance of work and rest. You spent 10 days imparting all the new knowledge, then became a hands-off manager, holding yourself up in the main tent, drawing blueprints day after day. Your only task was to ensure they didn't slack off. Jiang Xuan, after watching the soldiers train each day, would come to watch you draw. Although he couldn't understand any of it, his Mandarin improved by leaps and bounds. It couldn't be helped. Everyone around him spoke Mandarin. If he didn't learn, he couldn't communicate. On this day, Jiang Xuan returned from another stroll and saw you busy with pencil, ruler, and compass sketching on paper. His curiosity flared up again. Han Chief, what are you drawing? You've been at it for days. New ship blueprints. Gotta get them done quickly. You replied without looking up. Ships? Jiang Xuan's eyes went wide. Like the sailboat I arrived on? You finally glanced up at him and said lightly, It's a sailboat, but much bigger than the one you were on. Bigger? Jiang Xuan's jaw nearly dropped. How much bigger? More. Then double the size, probably. You went back to your drawing. Jiang Xuan stood there, petrified. He didn't understand shipbuilding, but he knew it wasn't easy. The first time he saw the Han tribe's two-masted sailboat, he had been utterly amazed. Now you were saying you planned to build a ship more than twice that size? This was staggering. You paid no mind to his shock, completely absorbed. In drawing the plans for several new types of ships, the Han tribe lacked many ships, and especially lacked large ships. The upcoming southern campaign required a large number of vessels to transport troops. Otherwise, how could over 4,000 men be deployed at once? After the war, the captured prisoners would need to be transported back, also relying on ships. In the long term, building cities on the grasslands, transporting coal, ore, and sand, all required transport ships with greater cargo capacity, easier handling, and faster speeds. Using the current small sailboats to transport coal? Unthinkable. Therefore, building large ships was urgently needed. The Han tribe's shipbuilding technology started with small 8-meter boats and had progressed to 20-meter long, 6-meter wide, 2-masted sailboats, which were already falling behind. The pace of development. This time, you directly designed a juggernaut with a cargo capacity exceeding 400 tons and a displacement of over 500 tons. How big? The length was doubled to 40 meters. The beam increased to 10 meters. The 2 masts became 3 vertical ones, plus an angled bowsprit. Don't be fooled by the doubled volume. Theoretically, it would be faster. Why? The sail area was several times larger, equivalent to adding several high-horsepower engines. The hull was also slimmer, with the length-to-beam ratio increased from 333 to 4, reducing drag in the water. Think about it. A bamboo pole versus a round wooden basin, which floats faster in water. The long, thin bamboo pole, obviously. Of course, a higher length-to-beam ratio wasn't always better. Slimmer ships had larger turning radii and were prone to capsizing during sharp turns. 40-meter ship like this would struggle to turn around in the 100-meter wide river channel of Liuyang Commandery. So you plan to set up the shipyard by the lake in Weishan Commandery and turn the ships around in the lake. Once they reached the wider river downstream, it wouldn't be an issue. To simplify manufacturing and speed up construction, you used one basic hull design to create 2 types of ships. One was a sunken-hold transport ship. The keel, hull, and rigging were the same, but it had no main deck. Instead, the front section was a large open hold for directly loading ore. It would transport cargo exposed in sunny weather, covered with tarpaulins in the rain. Put simply, it was a large, lidless wooden basin. The other was a multi-deck tower ship, same keel, but a much taller hull with 4 decks, plus a 5-story stern castle serving as a watchtower. This ship was for transporting people and goods, suitable for commerce, exploration, and troop transport. Both types had their uses. Neither could be omitted. You spent these past few days finalizing these details. It was a major undertaking, requiring thorough planning beforehand. Modifying it after construction would be a huge pain. Simultaneously, you sent an Eagle Post message to Dashu, telling him to recruit young, able-bodied men for temporary work at the shipyard after the autumn harvest. They'd be idle during winter anyway. Earning some extra money would be good. Participation was voluntary, not compulsory. You also instructed him to stockpile materials, planks, keels, paint, iron nails, all needed to be prepared in advance. Few more days passed. The blueprints were nearly finished, and the soldiers' basic training phase concluded. They were familiar with their weapons. The 300 scouts had also become quite proficient in their combat techniques. You immediately adjusted the training regimen. The scouts would spend half a day teaching grappling and combat skills to the other troop types. This training was essential. You weren't training soldiers to kill people, but to capture prisoners, free labor. The military served the purpose of development. Capturing more people and seizing more resources was the fastest way to climb the tech tree. Thus, a peculiar sight emerged in the military camp. Morning runs in full armor, followed by learning punches and kicks from the scouts in the forenoon. In the afternoon, they paired off to spar, practicing chokeholds, arm twists, knee kicks, leg locks, all sorts of joint-locking techniques and various methods of tying up opponents. Seeing the training was on track, you tossed out a casual, "Keep practicing hard. I'll be back in half a month," and then slipped away with Zhang Xuan. First, you returned to Hanyang City to settle in your entourage, dropped Zhang Xuan off at the school to continue his literacy lessons, took a quick look around home, then pocketed the blueprints and rushed off to the shipyard in Luoyang Commandery. Zhang Xuan had wanted to come along and see the large ships being built, but you flatly refused. Shipbuilding is classified. You haven't agreed to join our tribe yet, so you're not qualified to watch. The words were blunt enough, and Zhang Xuan couldn't argue. He knew you were pushing him for a decision. He'd seen the army, he'd started schooling. It was time to give a straight answer. Would he join or not? You had no time to wait around in Hanyang City for Zhang Xuan to make up his mind. The 2 months of military training ended, and it was already early October. Winter had arrived. These long 4 months also marked the 5th year since you transmigrated to this godforsaken place. Winter was a busy season. You had to hurry. You rushed non-stop to Luoyang Commandery. Whoa, the changes were significant. The paper mill's production capacity had exploded. Before, they only used wood, nearly stripping the forests bare. Now it was better. Bamboo, hemp, grass, bark. They could make paper out of almost anything. Thank goodness you'd planned ahead. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been enough paper. The man-made river had also been extended considerably, and many new villages had sprung up along its banks. That decision back then was truly correct. Where there's water, land can be reclaimed. More farmland meant a stronger tribe and increased tax revenue. After seeing these developments, you followed Dashu to the shipbuilding industrial park. Why call it a park? Because it was vast and had spawned a host of supporting industries. There was a newly opened nail factory specializing in ship nails, a large, officially sanctioned blacksmith shop that, besides making farm tools, pots, and pans for the common folk, primarily produced saws, hammers, anchors, pulleys, iron chains, and the like for shipbuilding. Unfortunately, Luoyang Commandery couldn't smelt iron. The raw iron still had to be shipped from Hanyang City. This place only handled processing. The largest facility was the timber processing plant. Wood was piled up like mountains, all felled from the nearby primeval forests. Some had been cut recently and were drying. Others had been stockpiled since the city's construction and were now ready for use. A row of wind-powered sawmills operated day and night, supplying materials to the shipyard. Next to the lumber mill was a newly built government-run textile factory, producing felt, linen cloth, and hemp rope, all sorts of things. These items primarily supplied the shipyard, hemp rope for cables, cloth for sails. Where did the raw materials come from? Government-run farms and taxes paid by the common people. Men tilled the fields, women wove flax. Hemp fiber and silk cocoons had to be turned over, eventually ending up in these official workshops. During the 4 months of winter, nobody wanted to be idle. Women went to the textile factory to weave cloth, earning some pocket money to buy pens, ink, paper, and inkstones for their children. Men went to the shipyard for odd jobs, also earning wages. Those unwilling to do tedious factory work formed groups of 3 or 5 and went into the mountains to cut trees. In winter, the wood had less moisture, and the trees were leafless, making them easier to fell, and they fetched a higher price. After cutting, they could haul the logs to the lumber mill and exchange them for money. With luck, they might also hunt some game, either to eat themselves or sell in the city, which could bring in a good sum. Furs were especially sought-after goods within the tribe. There was no choice. Without cotton, winters were cold, and animal hides were hard currency. If you really didn't want to go out and face the cold, your only option was to huddle indoors. But who could stand being cooped up for 4 straight months? After touring these new factories, you finally arrived at your destination, the Luoyang Commandery Shipbuilding Workshop. 4 slipways operated in an assembly line fashion. Laying the keel, installing hull planking, waterproofing, launching, and fitting out. All 4 stages proceeded simultaneously. The efficiency was top-notch. This was how the Han tribe built ships so quickly. How many 2-masted sailboats do we have now? Including those under construction, you asked Dashu beside you, looking at the bustling shipyard. There are 22 operational ones, counting Yufu's 3, and the 2 used for transporting goods from the coal mine. The rest are over at Waishan Commandery. Yu Yi took them to pick up new recruits. Including those being built, there are 26 in total. 1 is currently being fitted out and should be ready in 4 or 5 days, Dashu reported clearly, knowing the figures by heart. Not bad. How's the new shipyard coming along? Yu had instructed Dashu to prepare for building large ships half a year ago, giving him ample time, hoping for good news. It's barely usable. The pier and wet docks have been dug. There's 1 fitting out berth and 1 launching slipway. 2 construction berths are in covered dry docks, and there's 1 open-air one without a roof yet, which should be finished within a month, Dashu reported. Yu nodded. The progress was acceptable. Materials? Plenty of timber. Iron is a bit tight, though. We need Hanyang City to send more. Hemp rope and canvas are no problem. The textile factory can keep up. I'll talk to Hanyang Commandery about the iron. Yu frowned slightly. Iron is indeed tight this year. Too many people have been added in Waishan Commandery and at the coal mine. All the newcomers need tools, farm implements, pots, and pans. But shipbuilding can't stop. Only with more ships. Can we transport the coal back? And only then can our iron shortage crisis be resolved. With a larger population, everything was scarce, especially iron. Currently, only Hanyang City could smelt iron, and production couldn't keep up. This couldn't be rushed. It had to be addressed gradually. Yu continued. When you have time, discuss with Yunji and Waishan Commandery. You provide 3,000 people. He provides 5,000. Add some slaves and relocate them to Xingang Commandery next spring. Try to get Xingang Commandery established within a year to solve the steel production bottleneck sooner rather than later. Dashu was a bit confused. Chief, didn't you say coal needs to be turned into coke before it can be used to smelt iron? Shouldn't we build a coking plant first? Yu smiled. Smelting iron directly with coal works too. It just results in more impurities and higher sulfur content, making the iron quality poor, unsuitable for forging weapons. But using it to cast iron pots to rip off outsiders is perfectly fine. Let's establish Xingang Commandery first. Smelt iron directly with coal, and trade the resulting scrap iron pots with the Shin tribe and the grassland tribes for cattle and horses. They won't know the difference. Oh, realization dawned on Dashu. So that was the plan. Using scrap iron to dupe people, leave it to you to think of that. Then there's no problem. I'll discuss the plan with Yunji as soon as possible and submit it to the chief for approval. Good. Also, prepare a meeting room. Call all the master craftsmen from the shipyard for a new ship construction work meeting this afternoon. They must be on time. This project starts immediately. Yes, I'll arrange it right away. Dashu took his leave. In the afternoon, as the school hadn't let out yet, the meeting was set up in the large conference room of the government office, which had a blackboard. You arrived right after lunch, having already drawn the structural diagrams of the new ships on the blackboard in advance, ready to explain them to the craftsmen. The shipyard's master craftsman had heard the rumors long ago. The new shipyard had been under construction for half a year. Who didn't know new ships were planned? They were all eagerly anticipating it. These master craftsmen were now prized assets of the Han tribe. Having built so many large ships, their contributions were immense and they walked taller because of it. Their wages were high, their status elevated, the envy of everyone. Many who took temporary winter jobs did so hoping to learn a skill for their future livelihood. In your tribe, the status of craftsman was definitely not low. The master craftsmen filed into the conference room one after another. Their eyes immediately fell on the 2 completely new ship diagrams on the blackboard, and their spirits lifted instantly. The ship type, the dimensions, it filled them with both shock and delight. 3 vertical masts, 1 slanted bowsprit, a larger sail area, surely faster, a sunken hold structure, greater cargo capacity, lower center of gravity, more stable, a tower ship with 4 decks, convenient for transporting people. Then they looked at the dimensions. Good heavens. 40 meters long, 10 meters wide, more than double the size of the current ships. Such a massive vessel posed a significant challenge, but the eyes of the veteran craftsman shone purely with excitement. Not a single one was intimidated. Just then, you walked in from the doorway, smiling and clapping your hands. Clap, 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 clap. Everyone's attention instantly focused on you. As soon as you entered the room and clapped, everyone's gaze snapped towards you, and they rose to bow. The Han tribe didn't practice kneeling. Normally, a simple bow sufficed when meeting a leader. Even you, the great chief, unless it was a particularly solemn sacrificial ceremony. "Greetings, chief," the craftsman chorused. "All right, this is a meeting. Dispense with the formalities. Everyone sit. Get ready to take notes," you said, waving your hand to signal them to sit down. The craftsman promptly took out small notebooks and pencil stubs. Pencils were quite popular in the tribe now. Students used them, and carpenters loved them too. Much more convenient than ink markers for drawing short lines and making marks. They could even do quick calculations right on the wood. Truly miraculous tools. Once everyone was ready, you walked to the blackboard, cleared your throat, and began. 3 main things today: the features of the new ships, the construction process, and this winter's production targets. The new ship blueprints are on the blackboard. Everyone should be able to understand them. They're largely similar to the previous 2-masted sailboats, just bigger. The process remains the same 4 steps: laying the keel, installing hull planking, waterproofing, launching, and fitting out. I'll focus on the keel and planking. The ships are long and the timber isn't long enough. What do? Splice. But splicing is the last thing you want for a keel. Too many joints make the ship prone to breaking. So here's the requirement. The new ship keels can have at most 1 joint. Everyone working on keels, remember this. As for the planking, it goes without saying it definitely needs splicing. But splicing is skilled work. I don't care how many sections you splice together, the joints must be staggered. Absolutely no 2 joints on the same vertical line. This makes the ship strong. You casually drew a vertical line down the hull diagram on the blackboard. I want to emphasize one point. No matter how well you make a joint, it's definitely not as strong as a single solid piece of wood, right? The master craftsmen below all nodded. They understood this principle. Therefore, never put joints on the same line. Look at the diagram. If they're all aligned, and one end of the ship takes stress, crack. The joints might snap. 1 broken plank isn't a big deal, but the danger is if there are no other planks holding it together, the entire ship could break apart right there. Stagger the joints, so each plank supports the others, increasing the hull's strength. Those responsible for the keel, planking, and waterproofing pay attention to this issue. The new ships are large, so the planks are thicker. When caulking with hemp rope, stuff in a few extra strands. Don't be afraid of wasting material. Spending. A bit more material now to make the ship sturdy is better than dealing with leaks and repairs later. Leaks cause greater losses. Same goes for fitting out. Apply the paint properly. Build the stairs sturdy. Check the pulleys, anchors, ropes, and sails multiple times. Absolutely no mistakes. Even a small error at sea can lead to disaster. Ship lost, lives lost. You are building large ships. 40 meters long, 4 stories high, bigger than the school building. Everyone, be meticulous. Don't let carelessness by 1 or 2 individuals cause unnecessary losses. Finally, production targets. Production of 2-masted sailboats will cease, but the 4 currently under construction must be completed first. Once the keel workshop finishes the current one, take your team to the new shipyard and start working on the new ship keels. The other workshops do the same. Finish your current tasks and gradually move over. I'm giving you 3 months. By the end of the year at Qianniu, at least 4 tower ships must be launched. For the sunken hold ships, at least 2 before spring plowing. Those are simpler, they should be faster. In the first half of next year, build at least 6 more tower ships. For the sunken hold ships, the more the better, no upper limit. Keep building until I say stop. Furthermore, everyone carefully study the experience gained from building these large ships. Those with ideas can propose modifications or even design new ship types. As long as it's useful and adopted, you'll be rewarded with official positions and titles, with preferential treatment. The design focus is primarily on large ships. Use your brains. Think about what ship types are effective, what can be improved, what designs are brilliant. Talk more with the sailors who actually run the ships. Let me remind you, don't think these 40-meter ships are the limit. This is just a transition. I hope that in the future, you'll be able to build 80-meter, 100-meter ships, even hundreds of meters long. Step by step, once the crews gain experience and your skills improve, you'll be able to build them eventually. Everyone, work hard. Your words sent a wave of excitement through the craftsmen below. Previously, they worked on assembly lines, with no outlet for their ideas. Now, the chief was encouraging innovation, even offering official rank and titles. Many minds began buzzing with possibilities. Of course, some practical-minded individuals were solely focused on the production targets. 4 large ships in 3 months, a huge pressure. Fortunately, it was an assembly line. The techniques were mature, and temporary workers had been hired for the winter. Otherwise, you wouldn't dare set such demanding targets. Clap, clap, clap. You clapped again. Remember, quality first, speed second. Those who want to invent things do it in your spare time. Don't neglect your primary duties. All right, that's all. Team leaders collect the blueprints, meeting adjourned. The tasks are heavy, everyone get to work. The leaders collected the blueprints, and the news of your encouragement for innovation spread like wildfire throughout the shipyard. Even the junior craftsmen not qualified to attend the meeting heard about it, all eager to contribute their own treasures. That evening, just after work ended, a young carpenter from the shipyard rushed home, grabbed a small box and sprinted towards the government office district. "Husband, dinner's almost ready. Where are you rushing off to?" his wife called from the doorway. "To the government office to see the chief. You wait, maybe tonight our family will be ennobled." The young carpenter didn't look back, dashing off. Before the city gates closed, he arrived breathless at the entrance of the commandery governor's office and was stopped by the old gatekeeper. "Who are you looking for? What's your business?" the old man asked, stroking his beard. "Elder, please announce me. I'm from the shipyard. I wish to see the chief to present a skill." The young carpenter put down his box and bowed respectfully. The old man squinted at the box and said flatly, "Wait here, don't wander off." "Thank you, Elder." The young carpenter bowed again. At that moment, you were having dinner with Dashu in the back hall, discussing the development of the Lake Island after the new year. A junior official arrived with the old gatekeeper. Reporting to the chief, the gatekeeper says there's a young man from the shipyard outside with a box, claiming he wants to present a skill, the junior official said with cupped hands. "Oh?" You were a bit surprised. You had just mentioned it. This afternoon, and someone had already shown up? Quite efficient. "Good thing. Bring him in," you said, putting down your chopsticks. The junior official acknowledged and soon brought the young carpenter in. The young carpenter wasn't unfamiliar with the government office. He had participated in its construction before and knew his way around. But meeting you alone was a first. He was nervous, his palms sweating, clutching the box tightly. This humble one greets the chief. The young carpenter put down the box and bowed to you. A carpenter from the shipyard? I hear you want to present a skill? A new ship design?" You looked him over. The carpenter blushed, slightly embarrassed, replying to the chief, "It's not a new ship. It's a type of tenon joint I invented, different from the previous ones. I wish to present it to the chief." Hearing it was just a new tenon joint, your interest immediately halved. Tenon joints were ingenious, but ultimately just a connection method with limited impact. However, someone inventing something was always good. It was part of the incentive policy you established, so you received him patiently. "Take it out and let me see." You managed to smile. "Yes." Hearing this, the young carpenter happily opened the box at once and took out several items, placing them on the floor. You glanced at them. A section of bamboo tube, a writing brush, a long wooden stick, and a wooden lump resembling a roller wheel. They looked unremarkable. The young carpenter picked up the bamboo tube and began his demonstration. The next second, you froze. "Chief, please look. This bamboo tube, I used a circular tenon joint to make a cup. No wooden plug needed, and it's waterproof. Convenient for holding water, no leaks." As the young carpenter spoke, he twisted off the bamboo lid. "That's right, twisted it off. You clearly saw the threads around the mouth of the cup. Holy crap. Threads! This kid couldn't possibly be a transmigrator too, could he? Oh, quick, let me take a closer look." You couldn't remain calm anymore. These were threads. Such an incredible connection method, and he called it a circular tenon joint? Well, maybe that wasn't wrong. Tenons fit together, threads interlock by rotation. Calling it a circular tenon joint actually works. The young carpenter was startled by your excited reaction. "I just started my presentation. Why is the chief so worked up? Could it be he's really interested in this? Bring them all here. Let me see," you urged. Again seeing him laying, yes. The young carpenter snapped back to reality and quickly handed all his precious items over to you. You took the bamboo cup, roughly the size of a modern insulated cup, casually twisted off the lid, and carefully examined the threads on it. They weren't complex, just a single turn like a common bottle cap. But the threads protruded significantly, creating a large contact area, which improved the waterproofing effect. Plus, a single-turn thread was easy to open and close. The second item was a fountain brush pen, something you had invented. However, when you originally made it, the cap simply slipped on, and the ink-filling port at the back of the barrel was plugged with wood. This one he made had been entirely converted to use threads. The back end of the barrel unscrewed for ink filling, and the cap also screwed on. The third item was a rectangular wooden stick, like a stool leg. It also had a seam in the middle. You tried twisting it, and sure enough, it separated into two sections. At the connection point, one end had a protruding male thread, and the other had a recessed female thread. If the excess wood on both ends were sawed off, it would be exactly like a screw. The last item resembled a medicine grinding roller. A hole was drilled through the center of a circular disc, a wooden handle threaded through it, with the ends protruding to rest in a groove for grinding medicine. But this one was different. The protruding wooden ends were square. How could it roll? Only when you picked it up and felt it did you discover the secret. The wooden rods on either side weren't a single piece. They could both turn. Looking closer, the central disc wasn't solid either. It looked like two bowls clasped together mouth to mouth, seemingly containing something inside. You gripped one end and forcefully turned the other. The central disc spun with a whirring sound, taking a good while to stop. You were stunned again. This was a freaking bearing? This can be opened, right? Are there round balls inside? And grease? You asked tentatively. The young carpenter beside you was utterly amazed by you. The chief was truly the chief, simply incredible. Seeing it for the first time, it was as if you had X-ray vision guessing. All the secrets within. The chief is wise and brilliant. It is indeed round balls and grease. You are truly the ancestor of craftsmen in our Han tribe, the young carpenter exclaimed, his face full of admiration, laying the flattery on thick. Open it up, let's see. Listening to the flattery, you felt pleased inside but maintained a profound expression. The young carpenter nimbly took a small iron hook from the box, pried out 8 wooden pegs from the outer ring of the disc, and the disc separated with a click. He placed the disc flat, removed the upper half, revealing the internal structure. 3 concentric circular grooves were stuffed full of white round balls, the gaps filled with grease. It was indeed a bearing, but not the common hollow type. It was solid and designed for horizontal rotation. That was strange. What device in the tribe required a horizontal bearing? Most inventions are driven by need. You pondered horizontal rotation? A stone mill? Installing this thing on a stone mill would make it turn faster and smoother? Setting aside whether a wooden bearing could withstand the weight of a stone mill, stone mills needed friction. If it turned too smoothly, how could it grind anything? This is just a component, right? What is it installed on? How did you come up with this? You were bursting with curiosity. Replying to the chief, I was still inspired by you, the young carpenter said. Inspired by me? You raised an eyebrow. Besides the stone mill, what other horizontally rotating thing had you created? You couldn't recall. Precisely. I have a daughter, 4 years old, just learning to use chopsticks. Her arms are short and she always has trouble reaching the dishes, so her mother has to pick up food for her every day. I thought, if only the dishes could turn themselves in front of her. One day during a meal, I looked at the porcelain bowl in my hand, perfectly round, definitely not shaped by hand. It reminded me of the potter's wheel you invented, Chief. So I wondered, could I install a large potter's wheel mechanism on the table, make a double-layered table, put the dishes on top to rotate, so she could turn whichever dish she wanted towards her? I tried a few times, but it didn't work well. It was difficult to turn. Later, during another meal, I saw a peanut fall on the table and roll, and that gave me the idea. Adding some round balls where it rotates indeed made it much smoother. Holy cow, he even invented a rotating dining table. You were utterly stunned, yet felt a little like laughing. The driving force behind this guy's invention was actually doting on his daughter. However, a rotating dining table. You became even more suspicious. Was this guy really not a transmigrator? You asked tentatively. Do you know about Earth? The young carpenter looked completely baffled. Earth? What the heck is that? Something new the chief invented? How is it different from a football? You stared intently at him. It didn't seem like he was acting. He genuinely looked confused. If he were faking it, his acting skills were Oscar-worthy. You felt only blankness in his eyes, no surprise, which couldn't be faked. But conflicting thoughts began to churn within you. Part of you hoped for someone from your world to alleviate the loneliness, yet you also feared he might usurp your position. You had built this Han tribe up single-handedly, pouring so much effort into it. The sense of achievement from building, an empire from scratch, the feeling of power from controlling everything. It was downright addictive. You didn't want anyone causing trouble, let alone snatching your position. The taste of power was truly intoxicating. Chief, what is Earth? The young carpenter asked again, seeing you lost in thought. He snapped back, quickly covering up. Oh, it's nothing. Tell me more about these items. How did you think of making this kind of circular tenon joint? Hey, this humble one didn't have any grand ideas, just messing around. I started by making a bamboo cup. The kind with a wooden plug had too small an opening, inconvenient for pouring water or washing. So I wanted to make one with a wide mouth. A wide-mouthed cup couldn't use a wooden plug. I copied the fountain brush pen the chief made and created a slip-on cap, but it leaked. Later, trying to figure out how to seal it tighter, I shaved off half the outer layer of the cup mouth and half the inner layer of the cap, put them together, but it still leaked. One day, while working at the shipyard using a hand drill to make holes, I thought of rotational joining. Then I saw the rope wrapped around a mast, copied the pattern, and used a small knife to slowly carve out this circular tenon joint. When the cup was finished, I showed it to people at the workshop. They all said it was amazing, but not very useful. It wasn't strong enough for connecting keels, and it was laborious to make, impractical. But I didn't believe it. I felt this thing must have other uses, so later I tried making this pen and this wooden stick. Not bad. You began your assessment. This threaded connection has great potential, not just for making cups. Look at this. Pen. It's just a small version of the cup mouth. And this wooden stick connection isn't as strong as standard tenon joints. You wanted to explore further, but you explored in the wrong direction. The chief is right. This humble one is dull and couldn't figure out where else it could be used, the young carpenter said, scratching his head in embarrassment. No, you're not dull. Being able to invent things on your own already makes you better than most craftsmen, you encouraged. And this ball-bearing disc of yours also has great potential, not just for rotating tables, but it needs modification for other uses. By the way, what are these white balls made of? Are they strong? Replying to the chief, I commissioned someone to fire solid ceramic balls. They're quite hard. No problem. For making a table, but I don't know if they can withstand pressure. Ceramic balls? You nodded. Easy to shape from clay. With current technology, dreaming of steel ball bearings was impossible. Just hammering out the steel balls was beyond reach. Besides, ordinary steel balls might not necessarily withstand the stress. For some low-pressure devices, ceramic bearings were indeed a good choice. Right, what's your name? You only just remembered to ask. Replying to the chief, this humble one is named Lu Xingfa. Surname Lu? From the Lu deer tribe that produces coal? You were a bit surprised. No, this humble one was originally from the Lu, oink, grunt tribe that raises pigs. I joined at the end of the year before last, 2 years. Goishuo from the Lu tribe, you realized. All right, seeing that you love to invent, have a good attitude, and have even come up with 2 promising things, I promote you to the 4th rank craftsman title and officially appoint you supervisor. In the Ministry of Works, transfer your residency to Hanyang City within 10 days, specifically to research threads and ball bearings. Da Shu, handle the procedures for him, the promotion and residency transfer, you instructed Da Shu. Yes, I'll handle it tomorrow, Da Shu, replied Lu Xingfa, standing beside them, was completely stunned by this unexpected windfall falling from the sky. He quickly knelt and kowtowed. Thank the chief for his grace. This humble one, Lu Xingfa, will definitely dedicate myself to research from now on. Get up. Lu Xingfa, that Lu isn't ideal. I'll change your surname. Let's make it Lu. It sounds closer to your original tribe's name. Lu. You casually changed his surname. You were already very practiced at doing this to weaken potential clan influence. Ah. Oh. Thank the chief for bestowing a surname. Your humble servant, Lu Xingfa, will definitely serve the chief loyally and will not shrink from any sacrifice. Lu Xingfa was ecstatic. The chief personally bestowed a surname. What a tremendous honor. Don't just stand there being happy. Finish the procedures. Tomorrow, properly hand over your shipyard duties and report to Hanyang City within 10 days. Land will also be allocated to you there. All right, take your things and go back. Yes, thank you, Chief. Lu Xingfa was now completely famous. 2 small gadgets had directly earned him a noble title, an official position, and a surname bestowed by the chief. Although no one was quite sure what supervisor in the Ministry of Works entailed, it sounded grand and important. This treatment was the envy of everyone. The craftsman community was buzzing. What kind of gadgets could earn such high regard from the chief? Threads and ball bearings instantly became the new trend, spreading from the shipyard to the common folk, then following merchant caravans throughout, the various commanderies and counties becoming a hot topic of discussion nationwide. You were very satisfied with this effect on public opinion, even a bit pleased. It was like the saying goes, what the superiors favor, the subordinates will surely emulate. Letting everyone know you valued invention and creation would surely stimulate the people's innovative spirit, which was definitely good for the tribe's technological development. However, 3 days later, you were forced to intervene. This invention craze had gone a bit too far. The shipyard workers were only thinking about inventing things, dreaming of following Lu Xingfa's path to instant success. Their minds weren't on their work anymore. They started slacking off. Production efficiency plummeted. The completion of the 2-masted sailboat slowed, and the new ship project couldn't even get started. Even some foremen started neglecting their duties. When you received the news, you were furious and stormed directly to the shipyard. Those master craftsmen who had been slacking off were stripped of 1 rank of nobility and docked half a month's wages. One guy was even more outrageous, taking sick leave to secretly work on inventions at home. You directly stripped him of 3 ranks of nobility, demoted him to a commoner, and made him start over as an apprentice. You also made an example of him, posting notices throughout the city publicly criticizing him. Your swift and harsh measures immediately crushed this unhealthy trend. The craftsmen immediately buckled down, burying themselves in hard work. No one dared to slack off and work on inventions during work hours anymore. It was no joke, being stripped of nobility. In the Han tribe, a noble title wasn't just about face. It was directly linked to land. The rank determined how much land one was allocated, and the amount of land determined one's income. Lose the title, lose the extra land, lose grain and money. Who would dare treat it lightly? After dealing with this, you summoned Lu Xingfa privately and harshly criticized him for showing off everywhere. You didn't punish him further, just urged him to quickly hand over his work, pack up his family, and get himself to Hanyang City to take up his post. No sooner had you finished dealing with matters there than you were hastily riding back to Hanyang City. In the morning, you received an Eagle Post message. Jin Yi was back. Jin Yi was the commandant of the Jinwu Guard, nominally the head of your imperial guards, but in reality, he managed internal and external intelligence. Previously, you had sent him with the merchant caravan, responsible for gathering intelligence on the grasslands and the Shin tribe. His sudden return, could something have happened to the diplomatic mission? You had to hurry back and find out. You couldn't even spare a thought for the start of the new ship construction. It was early October, not yet snowing, but the wind was strong and the air dry. You galloped wildly all the way, kicking up dust, changed horses midway at Sitong County, and arrived back in Hanyang City by noon that same day. In the top floor office of the government building, you summoned Jin Yi. Jin Yi pays respects to the chief. As soon as Jin Yi entered, he knelt on one knee, performing a military salute with clasped fist. Get up. Why did you suddenly rush back? Did something happen to the mission? Or the merchant caravan? You asked, getting straight to the point, huh? Nothing happened. Jin Yi was baffled by the question. Then why did you come back? You frowned, staring intently at him. I came back to report. There was too much. Couldn't write it clearly in a letter, so I made the trip myself. Also brought back a batch of livestock. Jin Yi quickly explained, Oh, right, I forgot to mention I came back ahead of schedule. There are still several dozen brothers behind me escorting over 2,000 head of cattle and horses, mostly cattle. Things are a bit chaotic on the grasslands. I was worried, so I escorted them for a stretch. I only left after entering the mountain region. You nodded without saying anything. It was normal for the merchant caravan to provide logistics and security for the diplomatic mission, conduct trade with local tribes for livestock, send back a batch, and then transport more supplies out. But hearing things are a bit chaotic on the grasslands, you asked calmly. Have Mao Dun and Suritu started fighting again? Jin Yi was astonished. Huh? I haven't even said anything yet. How did the chief know? You shot him a glare, anger rising uncontrollably. Humph. You know you haven't reported it? Commandant of the Jinwu Guard, in charge of intelligence. Such important news, and I have to hear it from someone else. You're doing a really fine job as commandant. These words were already a clear reprimand. Jin Yi was terrified, scrambled up from where he was standing, and fell to his knees with a thud. Chief, please quell your anger. It is my dereliction of duty. I have disappointed. The chief, why haven't you sent back any intelligence for so long? You asked coldly, pacing with your hands behind your back. Chief, please allow me to explain, Jin Yi said, prostrated on the floor. Our journey did not go smoothly. It took 2 months of hard riding just to reach the rendezvous point across from the Shin tribe's territory. We were harassed by Mao Dun's men along the way. Both the ambassador and I felt the mission was paramount, so we didn't engage with them, just issued a warning. That fellow was also wary of us and didn't dare make a move. Because we were delayed by a few days, we missed the low tide and couldn't make the crossing. We could only wait idly on the shore for a month. When we finally got the next low tide, that Shin tribe guide insisted on going back to report first, afraid their chieftain would mistake us for robbers. He said he would come back to get us if permission was granted. But that guy left for 2 days and didn't return even when the tide rose again. We had no choice but to wait another month. Only when the third low tide came did he leisurely return, saying their chieftain had agreed, and only then did he lead the mission onto Bamboo Island. Things didn't go smoothly on the island either. The ambassador wrote back saying that talks about establishing a permanent presence progressed very slowly, especially regarding allocating land for our use. The Shin tribe chieftain adamantly refused. They only gave us a few dilapidated bamboo houses to live in, restricted our movements, and forbade us from trading. Therefore, our people embedded in the mission couldn't go out to gather intelligence, and the infiltration plan couldn't proceed either. I was afraid the chief would blame me for incompetence and dismiss me, so I kept delaying the report, wanting to wait until there was some progress over there. Jin Yi is at fault. Please punish me, chief. Jin Yi finished in one breath, his head bowed low. You didn't speak, nor did you tell him to rise. You just paced back and forth in the room, your mind racing, analyzing the situation. 2 months traveling, 2 months waiting locally, 2 months of stalled negotiations, another 2 months sending livestock back. More than half a year passed. Nothing significant achieved, just a waste of money and supplies. The more you thought, the angrier you became. A diplomatic mission to the Shin tribe, and they needed prior notification. Missing the first low tide was one thing, but they shouldn't have let that guide go back alone the second time. They should have just forced their way onto Bamboo Island and shown the imposing manner of the Han diplomatic mission, letting the other party report first and then waiting for permission. Wasn't that lowering our own status? As if our Han tribe was inferior. We were going there to teach them technology, doing them a favor. Now look, we'd already lost standing before even getting through the door. When Niu Wei came swaggering to the Han tribe demanding to send an envoy, did he think about needing prior notification? Our agreeing was a sign of magnanimity as a great power. What the hell was the Shin tribe anyway? The Celestial Empire graces your insignificant little place and we have to wait at the door. Jin Yi and Shu Ya, those 2 idiots, had completely disgraced the Han tribe. Didn't they know to be more assertive? Didn't they know the powerful Han tribe stood behind them? Waiting pointlessly for a month? The Shin tribe must have seen them as fools. Advance notice just gave the other side time to prepare. A whole month. Who knows what that guide said when he went back? Maybe they had already plotted how to deal with the mission. The difficult negotiations were proof. Our official purpose was to help them with development. Why would they keep dragging their feet and refusing? There must have been some prior scheme. Thinking of this, you suddenly asked again, what about the carriages sold to the Shin tribe? Were they delivered? Was payment made? Over 1,000 carriages. The payment was worth more than 2,000 head of cattle and horses, right? Why did you only bring back just over 2,000 this time? Where's the rest? Jinyi's body, still prostrate on the floor, trembled violently as he stammered. Replying to the chief. The carriages were all delivered. The Shin tribe acknowledged the price and agreed to pay with cattle and horses. But they said they couldn't produce that many, claiming their livestock was obtained by trading sea salt with the grassland tribes. They said, the sea salt trade is now contracted entirely to Maudun, and the exchanged cattle and horses hadn't reached the Shin tribe yet, told us to get the payment directly from Maudun. But when we went to Maudun said the salt was sold on behalf of the Jin tribe, so the cattle and horses should go to the Jin tribe, not us. When we went back to the Shin tribe, they still said they had no livestock and told us to get it from Maudun. So, hearing this, your anger flared up instantly. You kicked Jin Yi, sending him rolling quite a distance, and began cursing loudly. Useless, a bunch of useless fools. Can't even handle such a small matter. Getting played like monkeys. You've completely disgraced my Han tribe. They're passing the buck, trying to renege on the debt. Can't you see that? Idiots. What use do I have for you, bunch of incompetents? You kicked Jin Yi into the corner. He didn't even dare to whimper, playing dead on the floor. You paced angrily, but anger alone wouldn't solve anything. You had to clean up this mess, or the losses this time would be huge. You shot a cold glance at Jin Yi, already sentencing him in your mind. Botched the mission and dared to conceal information? Keeping someone like this around was just asking for trouble. The Qianniu Guard was such a crucial intelligence agency. You absolutely couldn't let him leak secrets. With this thought, you roared towards the door. "Guards!" Thump, 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 thump. Footsteps echoed on the stairs, and two junior officials in red robes pushed the door open. "Greetings, Chief," the two men greeted with cupped hands. "Drag Jin Yi out and execute him," you said, face expressionless, voice icy. The two officials exchanged glances, utterly bewildered. Jin Yi in the corner heard he was to be killed and was scared out of his wits. He scrambled towards your feet, crying and begging for mercy. "Chief, spare my life. I was wrong. Give me another chance. I'll definitely get the payment back. Spare me." Useless trash. Still thinking about a next time? You kicked him again. With a thud, the back of Jin Yi's head hit the tea table and he passed out instantly. The two officials beside you, witnessing your fury for the first time, were too scared to breathe. "Are you deaf? Want to die with him? Drag him out and chop off his head already?" You roared. "Yes, yes!" The two officials dared not hesitate any longer, quickly grabbing one of Jin Yi's arms each and dragging him out. At the door, one cautiously asked, "Chief, how should we chop him?" You suppressed your anger and glared at him. "Drag him behind the building and chop his neck with a saber. Gag him so he stops yelling, and don't scare the children at the school." The two officials shuddered, forgetting even to reply, and quickly dragged Jin Yi downstairs and out to the street behind. They found a rag to stuff in his mouth, bound his hands and feet, and threw him on the ground. The cold wind revived Jin Yi. Finding himself gagged and bound, remembering your earlier words, he started struggling and whimpering in terror. People from across the street gathered to watch the commotion, pointing and murmuring. "Brother, we don't have a saber. How do we chop him? The chief is watching from upstairs," one official said anxiously. "How about you watch him? I'll go borrow a saber from the front gate." The other looked up, saw you indeed watching from the fifth-floor window, and quickly suggested, "Go quickly." One ran to the front gate, borrowed a waist saber from a guard, and ran back. The other took the saber, gritted his teeth, and swung at Jin Yi's neck. Unexpectedly, Jin Yi rolled on the ground and actually dodged it. The onlookers across the street gasped. "Whoa! They were really going to kill someone. And the chief ordered it. What crime did he commit?" Some women quickly took their children home, leaving only some idle men still watching. "Are you going to do it or not? If we don't act soon, the chief will chop off our heads. Give it to me." The official beside him couldn't watch anymore. Snatched the saber, kicked Jin Yi over, stepped on his back, swung the saber in a wide arc, and brought it down hard on the back of his neck. With a sickening squish, the head rolled off. Blood splattered all over him, and the saber left a deep gash in the ground. Seeing the head actually severed, the onlookers scattered in terror. Slaughtering pigs and sheep was common, but seeing a human head chopped off was too shocking. The official who did the chopping picked up the dripping head and went upstairs to report, not forgetting to tell his companion to return the saber. Thump, 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 thump. The official entered holding the head. "Chief, it's done. This head?" You expressionlessly nodded towards the tea table. The official understood, placed the head on the tea tray, and stood respectfully to the side. "Go write a notice," you instructed. "State that Jin Yi, as the leader of the grassland merchant caravan, failed to report intelligence, thereby delaying the mission, resulting in the diplomatic envoy achieving nothing for 8 months, and the payment of over 10,000 head of cattle and horses still unrecovered. Fearful of death, he disgraced the reputation of our Han tribe. For his numerous crimes, he is sentenced to execution by beheading, with his head displayed publicly. Let the people know so they won't be afraid. Got that?" "Yes, this servant remembers," the official nodded repeatedly. "Over 10,000 head of cattle and horses. This guy actually dared to conceal that. Serves him right. Bring it to me when you're done writing. Also, have someone clean up the blood. Send someone to summon Yuji. Yes, this servant will attend to it immediately. The official took his leave. Soon, someone came to clean the blood, not daring to breathe heavily while looking at the head on the table. You stood by the window, letting the cold wind blow, not wanting to smell the blood, your mind racing. Qianniu was dealt with, but the position of commandant needed filling. You thought long and hard and settled on Yuji. The kid was young, but he performed well during the sea voyage with his uncle last time. He was bold, knowledgeable, resourceful, clever, and calm and decisive in emergencies. He should be capable of this job. As for Shoya, just thinking about him gave you a headache. Honesty and loyalty were virtues, but he lacked worldly experience and capability. He was too cautious, afraid of ruining relationships, unable to act decisively. He was currently in the Shin tribe territory, impossible to replace now. You could only give him advice and personally go support him after the new year to see if the situation could be salvaged. While you were thinking, the official sent to summon Yuji had already arrived at his home. Is Yuji home? Yuji was currently cozying up with Jiang Lei indoors, teaching her calligraphy stroke by stroke. He was deeply devoted to Jiang Lei, and Jiang Xuan was also amenable to the marriage alliance. Jiang Yong, seeing the good life in the Han tribe, was happy to see it happen too. One thing led to another, and Yuji had won Jiang Lei over. They were just short of holding the wedding ceremony. Right in the middle of their sweet moment, someone called from outside. Yuji was annoyed, pushed the door open and yelled, "Who is it?" "Yes, I'm home, what is it?" Then he saw who it was. Standing at the door was a county official in official robes, wearing a bronze seal. Wasn't this the senior clerk from the Punishment Bureau, the one responsible for arrests? Why? Was he looking for me? Did I commit a crime? Yuji's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't dare be disrespectful. He quickly bowed. "I was unaware of the esteemed official's visit. Forgive my failure to welcome you. Please come in for a cup of hot tea." Then he asked, "May I ask what business the esteemed official has with me?" "No need for tea. The chief summons you." "Come with me quickly," the senior clerk said expressionlessly. He had just heard the chief had killed someone and then immediately summoned Yuji. He felt uneasy himself and didn't dare be overly friendly. Seeing this attitude, Yuji felt even more uncertain. The chief suddenly summoned me. If there was business, shouldn't he look for my uncle? Seeing this clerk's deadpan face, could it be? The chief disapproves of me marrying a woman from the Yujiang clan. Oh? The chief summons me. Then please wait. A moment, esteemed official. I'll go back inside and grab a jacket. Yuji quickly went back inside, told his parents, asked Jiang Lei to leave first, threw on a sheepskin jacket, and followed the senior clerk to the government office, head bowed in thought the whole way. The two went upstairs. Just as they reached the third floor, they saw a servant carrying a bucket and mop dripping with blood coming down. The thick smell of blood assaulted their nostrils. Yuji frowned, feeling even more apprehensive. Why would there be blood in the government office? Knock, knock, knock. "Chief, Yuji has been brought," the senior clerk announced. "Come in." Your voice came from inside. Yuji nervously pushed the door open. Seeing you sitting behind the desk, he quickly bowed. Yuji greets the ch. Before he could finish, he felt a chilling gaze fixed on him from the side. A glance from the corner of his eye revealed a human head placed prominently on the tea tray. Its eyes were wide open, staring right at him. Yuji nearly bit his tongue. The smell of blood was even stronger in the room. You sit over there and wait first," you said expressionlessly. Oh, yes." Yuji was stunned but didn't dare disobey. "The direction you pointed was next to the tea table? You wanted him to sit next to the head?" Steeling himself, Yuji carefully sat down on a rabbit fur cushion, finding himself eye to unseeing eye with the severed head. The atmosphere was extremely bizarre. After a short while, another junior official entered, his hair wet, his face flushed red from the cold. "Reporting to the chief, the notice is written." "Read it." "Yes." "Ahem. Jinwu Guard Commandant Jin Yi, as leader of the grassland merchant caravan, Failed to report intelligence. Delayed the mission. Disgraced the reputation of our Han tribe. Is hereby punished for numerous crimes. Executed by beheading. Head displayed publicly. Chief, is this wording acceptable? The official read, trembling slightly. Yuji, sitting nearby, understood. The head in front of him belonged to Jin. He had even seen him when the mission departed. The chief had killed him and then summoned him. Could it be? Acceptable. Have more copies made and posted. Send someone to explain it. You nodded. Yes, this servant will attend to it. The official bowed and retreated. Only then did you turn your gaze to Yuji beside you and suddenly ask, I hear you're going to marry that Zhang Lei from the Yujing clan? Ah. Yuji was taken aback. So it wasn't what I thought?